He looked like this. All righty, let's call the meeting to order. Has the roll been taken?
Up on arrival.
All right, first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of April 12th. Does everyone have a chance to take a look at those? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Vote to be approved as printed.
Motion for approval, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Does anyone have any unfinished business? Hearing none, we will move on to new business. First item on the agenda of new business is consideration of the administration's request to amend section 1335.10 of the Planning and Zoning Code to allow for gravel parking areas in certain circumstances. I'm hopeful that someone can give us some direction on that.
Okay, so starting on page, I believe it's either page 4 of the packet total, page 3 is numbered. The administrative request to amend section 1335.10 of the Planning and Zoning Code, it's to allow for these certain situations where it'd be permissible to have gravel lot. The section requires that all automobile parking areas be constructed from concrete or asphalt. The use of gravel or similar material is not permitted, with the exception provided for outdoor stadiums, parks, recreation areas, or similar uses. Section of the code is provided in the staff report. City Council, Code Enforcement, and the City Engineer have discussed allowing for gravel parking areas for some additional residential situations, and it permits in this instance, permitting camper vans, recreational vehicles to be parked on the premise on that gravel pad as opposed to having that concrete or asphalt surface. City's planning and zoning codes specifically reflect issues with loose stone. Looking at the analysis section, while it's cheaper to install, the parking surface materials reflect issues. So the gravel parking lots, you can have incidental erosion. In particular, you discharge of stone materials and other washout scenarios where the stone ends up going into the street surface and then eventually into the stormwater management system. It is a concern as it relates to our MS4 requirements. Those are federal stormwater requirements, but there's also then just general issue of having a trespass with where it's anticipated that the gravel will move. So it's a continual problem. It's something that other jurisdictions in the state have addressed in the staff report we provide. Charleston's, Fairmont's, and Morgantown's approaches to surface parking lot area material requirements. We were looking at the uniqueness of the Charleston approach when we developed this proposal, basically allowing for limited instances. In their instance, they're requiring a concrete apron, driveway apron be installed at the right of way. That would allow for, if you have a vehicle traveling in and out more frequently, that's hopefully stopping that erosion and that washout potential. What we're recommending though is just for classic vehicles that are only going to be moved infrequently, maybe a couple of times a year. So staff provides for the complete removal and replacement of section 1335.10 to allow for limited use of gravel parking areas for recreational vehicles as there's less movement from the parking pad driveway as compared to traditional automobile use for commuter purposes. Also, provisions related to special exemption for gravel parking areas for certain outdoor uses is also clarified. That has to deal with, there was a section that allowed for city council to make a determination. With having the Board of Zoning Appeals, that would be the preferred venue to have a special exemption process where if there's some unique situation where you have an outdoor arena and it makes sense to have gravel, then they can work with that. But as opposed to, as it is right now, going through city council does present potential for what would be considered illegal contract zoning. It's generally not preferred to have variances, anything that's changing zoning ordinance requirements. You have to go through that quasi-judicial Board of Zoning Appeals. Let's see, so then we provide the overall conformity with the comprehensive plan, utilizing the new comprehensive plan. We see that the sections, the build from within revitalization, redevelopment, and C, keeping it clean. These are the core objective areas that are filled by, are met with this type of zoning text change. As it is, recommendation from staff then is for the amendment request to be approved as discussed in the application, not the application, but in the staff report. Additional clarification can be provided by the city attorney on site.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Whitmore?
Yeah. Reading through this right here, didn't see anything to address the construction or the installation of the gravel aside from just placing gravel out there. As a contractor, typically you'd put down some type of geotextile fabric as a base layer to separate the gravel from the ground surface to prevent mud and soils and sediments from surfacing up into the gravel, which could ultimately get tracked off of it. I would suggest probably having some type of language added there to, geotextile fabric's not very expensive. It's a couple $100 for, 300-foot roll of it. So it's not a very large cost to have somebody incur, but it has a lasting impact on the integrity of it. And then also some type of language about maintenance. Having gravel out there is one thing, but if a weight of the vehicle or tracking on and off the surface, pushes the gravel out, or if they track mud onto the gravel, and and you don't have some type of maintenance provision for code to enforce, then it could spiral real quickly, and then we've got mud being tracked off of properties onto the streets that would then, as you said, would create a large MS4 issue.
Ashley may be able to provide some clarification on general requirements. Now, I believe the specific requirement for having like geofabric in place, that would be through engineering, correct?
Yeah, the city engineer, they were doing approved pads and brochures and off the property. So, I'm not even sure if he's got the standards developed for what he wants to do with that or not. Probably need to see if, you know, council's going to go ahead and approve these amendments or not. I'm sure that he's perfectly qualified to come up with that language for what we want to do to approve for that. But you're right, we will need something to go off of with inspection.
And then to think down the road with helping code with enforcement of it, the structure and language around it for infrequent use vehicles be parked on it, unless code would set up camp or cameras to monitor the type of use and, you know, frequency of use, it might be difficult to I guess, determine whether someone's frequently using it or infrequently using it. The language that Charleston has with having that apron right there, I know concrete's not cheap, and that's what this is primarily, you know, trying to avoid, is so homeowners don't incur the large expense of concrete or asphalt, but a small 5-foot apron, you know, where it would meet city streets, most likely could already be in place by an existing driveway, or, you know, if this is going to be a new driveway, you know, it shouldn't be too unreasonable to ask that an apron be added into the language, and then maybe loosen up the restrictions of the use, because then that would give code a clear black and white determination: is somebody in compliance or are they not in compliance? Because leaving it up to frequency is a very broad determination.
And so with the staff proposal, that's why we've limited to recreational vehicle class as opposed to commercial vehicles and just general cars. That would allow us, if we were to do enforcement, we'd be able to take imaging of the site and show that type of vehicle is not supposed to be parked there in accordance with the code. Now, we were looking to just, that would be broadening it more than what staff has proposed. If the planning commission is in favor of that, some sort of, I guess, amendment, we can look into that. Or would we need to look at potentially having additional code change? I'm looking at the attorney now.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do that, you're going to be above and beyond what's specified changes. I mean, I think that the situation already deals with what has addressed Mr. Lane's concerns. The city engineer has the ability to set forth specifications for such gravel parking areas. If the city engineer believes that a concrete apron is there, the city engineer can require that. Regarding dragging mud on the highway, that's prohibited by subsection C already. So I think code can already write a notice of violation if they see there's improper compaction out there. So you already have code is going to be involved in the approval as well as the city engineer. So I think those concerns are already addressed. And again, if you said, Mr. Whitmore, when we first started drafting, we considered adding things such as frequency of use, but again, it created problems. So that's why we just left it with the recreational type vehicles. And is it possible someone drags one of those out every day? Of course it is, but presumably that's not the case. So we did specifically prohibit those longer flatbed trailers because it wants to be more likely commercial, and also specify you can't use commercial anyway. So if a enclosed trailer is going in and out every day, it's likely commercial use anyway. So that's something that, as usual, you expect the neighbors to complain about. As far as commercial boats and those sort of things, I don't think we have that issue here. So I think that the way we've structured it, we have addressed council's concerns as well as the concerns of the public that brought this up. Because this was brought up by members of the public on the grounds that apparently someone complained that someone had an RV parked on their property on the grass, which is against code, which caused code to go out and cite them, which of course then creates a cascading effect, because once code goes out and cites one person, guess what? There's a whole bunch of other people in violation too, because that property owner points it out. So this was addressed by council a few weeks ago. That was a concern, and they wanted to do something that lessened that issue. So city engineer reviewed this code and reviewed it. They do not believe that it's going to create an MS4 concern. Obviously, again, if you have gravel, it creates that potential, but that's going to be up to code enforcement as well as the local people. And I think they can, if there's a gravel issue, code can cite as it's written. So.
Thanks. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I was wondering that if the city engineer would require some kind of a perimeter structure to contain the gravel. The reason I say that is because have you ever seen a rock thrown by a lawnmower? And if there's nothing to contain it, there's a possibility of that happening. And I was wondering if that would be in
So I don't believe it would be something that the engineer is going to be looking at from probably more of a slope issue as opposed to how, like, just determining where the stone is going to be settling. If the commission would like to make it more stringent to require like a landscape, some kind of buffer between that stone and the actual either grass or other material, we can include that language. The problem with that will be just our physical ability to enforce that type of change is going to be tricky because it is gravel; it's going to move. So. But it's something we can allow for in a review phase if the commission would like.
I think it would be I think it'd be a good safety issue.
If I may, I'd agree with the gentleman down there, and to the economics of it, I believe they make really affordable plastic edging, most typical landscape edging that could act as a barrier separation between the gravel placement and the yard, define those two spaces to hopefully prevent the landowner from taking his mower and clipping the edge of the rock here, because I've mowed over gravel areas and I've shot rocks out of the side of the mower before, and especially this most likely occurring in the street where a neighbor could be close by, or a vehicle driving on the street, or someone walking up the sidewalk, a flying rock is a hazard. But something get the engineer's thoughts, but landscape edging is a economical and affordable potential barrier that would help alleviate that concern.
Justin.
Yeah, I was just curious. The only number that I heard said on the apron was a 5-foot apron. And I was just curious, because a lot of what I've seen are individuals who have to back in over a curb and sidewalk. Would that 5 foot include the sidewalk plus the addition, or would they have to take that out and put a 5-foot apron in?
Well, it would depend on how the planning commission proceeded. The apron is generally going to be in the right of way. So it's in that portion where you have your sidewalk, but also I think it's into the weird terminology when you're in the right of way as opposed to being on the private property parcel. In some situations, it's going to make sense to have that driveway apron probably going from the right of way to the parcel boundary, which may be more than 5 feet. We can require that, being the city, if it's in the right of way, we have specific design standards that we can require upon developers, but we don't. For this proposal, it hasn't been examined. It's just we weren't going with the apron approach at all. So it's something, if we want to explore more, we can definitely do that, but it wasn't in this proposal.
Wayne and Justin.
No, I think the apron issue's been addressed.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions for Mr. Whitmore or Mr. Marsh? Anything else we need to know, Richard?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion? Anyone?
No, we won't do nothing. My motion is we leave that alone.
You what?
We leave it alone. I don't see why we need to put parking on gravel already. We code addresses it now and it's much better the way it is now, without tracking mud and dirt and stuff. And I'm not a fan.
So you, just
You
to
don't want-
be,
Yeah,
just to be clear, your motion is to,
I would say leave it alone. We leave it the way the code was with the park on blacktop or
Deny the change?
if I was making a motion, so I would, that's the side I'd follow.
okay, we have a motion not to amend section 1335.10 of the planning and zoning code to allow for gravel parking. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
All right.
Real quick, to be clear, that would be making no changes to the code whatsoever,
Correct.
not allowing for gravel.
I had some discussion on that. Procedurally, this is a consideration of administration request to amend this section. So would we have to make a motion to consider amending this section and have a second, and then if someone wants to amend that, or just vote it down, then it won't be passed as a request for amendment. I don't know, maybe the city attorney could elaborate a little bit more on that. I just feel like that we're deviating from the agenda by making a motion
So we need
that's
to,
different from.
either up or down, we need to do something on,
Oh,
is that correct, Richard?
Yeah, I think you've got to do something with what's on here, whether you want to pass on it or amend it or deny the request. I think amending the motion is fine.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind, you're providing a recommendation to city council. So this is a recommendation to deny the proposed for changes,
Right.
as it's been currently phrased.
I make a motion that we accept this,
We have to act on this first.
okay.
So, just to be clear, your motion is to, disallow
West, yeah.
the amendment of the, correct? Is that the,
But we would have to consider it first. We have to consider it first, what's on the agenda first, right? And then during the second, after the second, during discussion, then we would have, I guess, Mr. Fazzini's, motion to deny it.
I think his motion, council is requesting to amend the section, he's saying no. So, that's, I believe, am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Then it would be a vote no then on this.
Correct.
I guess
So-
that's on the
So we
code.
vote no on the recommendation.
No on the recommendation, so no on the request.
On the request.
Okay. I thought we just had, we didn't have a first and a second on this item on the agenda. I thought we were just going straight to.
Oh, no, this is on item A.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just want to make sure we stay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Mr. Fazzini's motion is to deny the request to amend section 1335.10 of Planning and Zoning Code to allow for gravel parking areas in certain circumstances. That has been seconded by Mr. West. All in favor?
All right.
All opposed?
No,
No.
No.
I'll do a roll call here. Patrick Schaefer,
Uh, Yes.
Dorothy Parsons,
I go along with what the gentleman was talking about. Is that a yes?
to deny.
Deny it, yes.
Chris Min,
no.
Mr. West,
No.
Mr. Fazzini,
Tonight.
so you're-
Yes, tonight, yes.
Deny.
Mr. Police,
Yes. Accept.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Was it yes to?
We're saying yes to deny?
No, yes, there is.
In favor?
Yes to accept.
Wait a minute.
So you're saying no to deny? Okay. Chris, are you saying yes to deny?
Correct.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, yes tonight.
Okay. And Mr. Lane?
My vote is no.
Your vote's no. And Mr. Jackson?
No.
4 to 4.
Patrick?
Can we table it next meeting?
Can we make another motion?
Richard, since this is a
Yeah, you can do another motion, nothing's pending on the floor right now.
motion to,
I'd make a motion to amend the language. And I know Richard commented earlier that there's a lot of other code and a lot of other areas that address the concerns, but I'd like to make a motion to basically make the language more clear, more stricter on what's going to be required to be built.
Yes.
To give the public a clear set of rules and guidelines to where we don't have to worry about anything being unsightly or violating any of the MS4s, and allowing the citizens to enjoy their property.
so are you saying to table until that point?
I would table it so that language can be strengthened and brought back to the board.
If I may, Mr. Chair, there's 9 members here, correct?
There's a,
Did somebody not vote?
I voted. Who didn't vote?
6, 7, 8, 9, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Who's not on the roll?
Who's? David Man's not here.
we can like stand up and do it like dodgeball. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we spread apart.
No, you know you weren't good at dodgeball.
Shoot, you have no idea. Read it dodgeball. Yes, sir. Always the last one.
On like a rifle.
I love dodgeball days. Like I didn't pick that back.
5 yeses.
Oh, 5 yeses.
Yes.
I'm sorry, 5 yeses.
Okay.
I missed one of the yeses, 5 yeses. To deny.
Okay. So, based on the recount of the votes, that motion is denied. So, here we stand on,
Had to go through certain.
new business item A. Thank you all. We will move on to new item B. Consideration of the administration's request to amend sections 1305.01, 1327.01, 1327.02, and 1327.08 to define and include zoning district requirements for brewery, brew pub, distillery, mini distillery, micro distillery, off-premises consumption alcoholic beverage sales, land use, private club, tavern, and winery land uses. That's a mouthful. I'll turn that over to you, Joe.
The Economic Development Department seeks to amend Chapter 13, Planning and Zoning Code of Codified Ordinances to properly define land use concerns involving the sale, manufacture, and on-premise consumption of beer, wine, alcoholic cider, and alcoholic liquor. Currently, the City of Clarksburg Planning and Zoning Code provides for private clubs, taverns, and nightclubs, but does not properly define these terms and uses conflicting language when compared to General Offenses Code 521. That's provided in a supplemental attachment of the report. Adds a 5,000 level section ordinance that those are offenses that are directly regulated by the city police. So that's got more weight than going through code enforcement. You're able to get a citation much more quicker, more practical. Additionally, these also relate to state concerns, so you can go up to magistrate court if necessary. Let's see, so WB ABCA officers administer internal operations of permitted commercial sales locations. That's a unique little provision where our police aren't necessarily going in regulating how bars are acting. We have to wait for their enforcement officers, which is challenging being in a district that has quite a number of establishments given the size. City of Clarksburg's planning and zoning code definitions fail to establish brewery, brew pub, distillery, mini distillery, micro distillery, off-premise consumption of alcoholic beverage sales land uses, private clubs, taverns, and winery land uses when definitions are provided in Section 521 related to alcoholic beverage-based activities. Brewery, distillery, and winery land uses are defined to an extent. Newer, smaller facilities are not defined. Liquor stores and other off-premise consumption type land uses are not defined. And a mixed-use restaurant combined with an alcoholic beverage production facility does not currently exist. Private clubs and tavern terminology is used in the planning and zoning code, but without definitions. The term nightclub is used and defined, but when the term is used in the ordinance, it is generally reduced to a tavern type of WVABCA license land use. As such, we're recommending the following terms be included into the planning and zoning code to better reflect the WVABCA statutory language. And so we're defining brewery as means an establishment where beer is manufactured or in any way prepared. Brew pub means a restaurant combined with a brewery, distillery, mini distillery, micro distillery, and or winery. Distillery means an establishment where more than 50,000 gallons of alcoholic liquor is manufactured or in any way prepared. Micro distillery means an establishment where in any 1 year no more than 10,000 gallons of alcoholic liquor is manufactured. Mini distillery means establishment where in any 1 year no more than 50,000 gallons of alcoholic liquor is manufactured. Off-premise consumption alcoholic beverage sales land uses would mean the retail sale of beer, wine, and other alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption in accordance with West Virginia ABCA Class B licenses procedures. Private club means an establishment that is licensed by the West Virginia Beverage Control Administration to provide for the on-premise consumption of beer, wine, and or alcoholic liquor. Tavern means an establishment that is licensed by the West Virginia Beverage Control Administration to provide for the on-premise consumption of beer and or wine, but not alcoholic liquor. And winery means an establishment where wine or alcoholic cider is manufactured or in any way prepared. Providing these definitions, staff also provides that the brew pub and off-premise consumption alcoholic beverage sales land uses as local business land uses permitted in the B1, B2, B3, B4, and CBD districts. In addition to the above definitions, staff has provided for the removal of language that requires pool halls and on-premise alcohol consumption locations to only occur at hotel or motels in the central business district. Additional buffering restrictions related to these land uses have also been identified for removal. Comprehensive plan, in terms of conformity, we're finding that once again we have conformity with revitalization and redevelopment objectives. In particular, build upon observations and goals of the plan to develop a downtown revitalization economic development strategy. Additionally, pursue a complete makeover of the planning and zoning code to encourage contextual development and a more convenient development process. Future land use mapping provided on page 4 of the report also shows the core changes preferred for the revitalization area. And as provided, there's the little blurry on my end, but it's develop a downtown revitalization strategy. It's encircling the entire downtown area. So recommendation, staff recommends that the Planning Commission send a recommendation to City Council for approval of the text amendments as provided in this report and included in the ordinance form as addendum A of the report. That concludes everything on staff.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Whitmore? Mr. Marsh, anything to add on this?
No, it just brings it in line with what the state code says about, that's where he drew the language from. So it's really just using the state code's definition of all these things, such as the micro distillery, mini distillery, those things. It's just updating them. In many ways, it's just updating our own language.
Anyone else? Mike? Steve? Okay. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion on the request?
I said move.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that, to grant the request. All in favor? Opposed?
As that needed to accuse from the vote there was for personal involvement.
Chris recused himself from the vote, but that passed. So, all good on that. Does anyone have anything else? Steve, anything for us? Yes, sir. Okay. Wayne, anything? Does anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So move.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Kimmy.